Good evening, everyone. I am super excited about today's live where we're going to be talking about when is actually the right moment for you to leave your job. So, if you are hopping in and this is your first time, go ahead and type in first time in the chat. And if this is your second or third time, right? Right, OGs. Like if you have been in one of my workshops, one of my LinkedIn lives, like I want to know that you're coming back so that you can get more of what's needed to get you to that six-figure salary. And then for those that are watching the replay, let me know. Just type in hashtag replay. Everybody knows I respond to comments. If you leave me a message, I will respond to that as well. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Melissa Flurry, and I'm a career and leadership coach with the Branded Career. And at the Branded Career, we help corporate professionals just like you land your first six-figure job. So, I find that a lot of people are really comfortable in their roles, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? No one wants to be striving and trying to thrive 24/7, right? It can get exhausting. However, I find that many of us, even though you might be comfortable, you finding yourself discontent, right? And so I get a lot of questions of, hey Mel, when is the actual like right time for me to leave my job? And it can come about because sometimes I find that clients will start their job search, then stop, right? And then they're feeling like, okay, maybe things are getting a little bit better. But for those that want to remain committed to the job search, because it is a commitment, I feel like you need to be sure of this is your moment to leave and make sure that you put a plan in place that you're going to actually follow through on. So, for those of you that are watching, make sure you have your pens, your papers, your notepad, your iPad, whatever it is that you use to take notes, because I am going to be giving you a lot of advice and hopefully something strategic for you in order to execute and get that next role that you want. So, the first reason why, or the first sign that it may be time for you to leave your job, is that there's limited career growth and lack of development. And you'd be surprised that many of the people who come and seek services with the Branded Career or get coaching through the Career Catalyst program are not coming just to land a six-figure job per se. Like, that's not the reason why they want to leave. But the main reason why they want to leave their jobs is because they feel that there's just a lack of development and a lack of career growth. And let me know in the comments if you've ever felt this way in your job or in your career, where you've been working with a company for maybe a couple years and initially you were really excited about the role, right? And it took you some time to get up to speed and to really accelerate and just achieve great things in your role. However, you find yourself doing just redundant activities over and over and over again. And so I find that when clients come to me that they've been proactive about it, like they've tried to do some extra assignments, they tried to seek out volunteer work, they tried to gain some mentors and sponsors. However, nothing has really changed their current situation. And so if you find that there's no clear advancement in your role, like there's no clear advancement for promotion. So let's say you go from analyst to senior associate to manager, or if you find that you're kind of stuck in your specific group, that you're not even allowed to move across lines of businesses, then this might be the moment where you need to consider actually leaving your current company. Because if you are unable to gain new experiences, if you are unable to really increase or upskill the skill sets that you have, then you're really remaining in a situation where you just cannot grow. And so I just find that when you're in a place of just boredom, you're in a place of there's even just a lack of challenge, that might be a sign that it's time for you to leave. And so the number one reason being lack of career growth, right? The second reason, of course, is going to be poor compensation. And sometimes many of us don't even know that we're underpaid until we're caught in a financial bind. And what I mean by that is that most of us have just simply accepted our salaries and kind of just said, you know what, this is what it is. This is what they're paying. So I'm just going to be grateful and take this salary. However, it takes really intentional research to realize, you know what? Let me actually see what the market is actually paying. And you'd be surprised that you're coming into your role thinking that, okay, the bandwidth that they offered me between 70 to 90 is good. However, when you look at the market for a specific role, you find that it's actually paying 100 to 150, right? And so when you're underpaid, or you find that the market of what they're paying is just not in line with the market research, that's a sign that you might need to go. Now, there are definitely opportunities where you can try to have your salary realigned. You can try to renegotiate your salary internally. And that's something that I've definitely worked with personally myself, as well as with my clients. However, you have to be okay with your company not being able to meet your financial expectations. And from there, you have to be proactive about it and actually leave. Another thing that comes with poor compensation is that I tell my clients that you actually need to do a financial audit. And what I mean by that is that you need to understand what you need, what salary you need in order to live your desired lifestyle. So it's hard to say that you need more money when you don't know how much more you actually need to make. So sit down with your finances, get together a budget, and actually understand how much income you actually need to bring into your household, because there comes a point where you can't just keep cutting expenses, right? Like you can't keep cutting the Starbucks, can't keep cutting the cable, you can't keep cutting whatever it is that they say that you need to cut. Like there comes a point where you actually need to bring in more income. You need to increase your salary. And so if you are in a place where you've done everything that you could do financially on your end to manage the income you've have to be a good steward, then it's time to consider, how can I position myself to be in a role that's going to pay me more money so that I can reach my financial goals. So the third reason why it might be a sign for you to leave your job is the toxic work environment. And this is something that most of us will say on a whim, like, oh, my job is so toxic, right? Like, oh, my coworkers are so toxic. However, many of us have kind of been just so conditioned in our work environment that we think that this is normal. And so you have to know that, one, you don't have to stay in a toxic work environment. Like one thing I tell my clients often is that you are not in a prison. Like you can leave your job whenever you decide that it's time for you to leave your job. Like you don't have to serve a prison sentence at work. And so you should not be tolerating disrespect. And another thing I want to say is that when it comes to a toxic work environment, oftentimes we focus more so on hostile behaviors, but there are other ways that your work environment can be toxic. And so one of the ways that I talk about, or a couple of ways that I've noticed that there's toxicity in the workplace, is one, being unsupported and undervalued, right? And so you come to work and you find yourself doing the job of two or three people, and you're not being supported with the resources that you need, the time that you need, and overall the support that you need in order to not only do your job, but do your job well. Another thing when it comes to toxic work environment is unmet promises. Like how many of you have been in a place where your job said you're up for a promotion, and then when that timeline comes about, they're like, oh, we're unable to do that. Or when they told you when they hired you that you would be eligible to renegotiate your salary, and when that time came, they were unable to do that. Or when they said, oh, hey, we're going to be hiring, this is the timeline, you'll be able to get an assistant, you'll be able to get an analyst, but they're unable to do that. And so when you have a work environment that doesn't meet your expectation, that doesn't support you, nor provide you with the resources, and on top of that is hostile, then it's time for you to go. The next thing that I want to talk about, and I think it's really, really important to talk about, is when there is poor work-life balance, then that might be a sign for you. That might be a sign that it's time for you to go. And what I mean by poor work-life balance is not the one-off, right? It's not the when there's a busy season, maybe 2 to 3 times a year, or that like there's a set schedule where you know that your job is going to be busy. Like I'm talking about work-life balance throughout the year. or for many people throughout the course of their career at a company for many years, right? And so when you find that your job responsibilities are really bleeding into your personal life, you may need to reconsider what's important to you. And if this job is not as important to you as your personal responsibilities, then you need to find a company that really aligns with your values. And so I find that if you're constantly tied to your laptop, you're tied to your phone, like it doesn't even really matter that you're making a lot of money because you can't even enjoy it. Like one thing that I told my client, one of my clients, is that, she's been making a six-figure salary for a while now. And we were talking about just simple self-care or even going on vacations. And she's like, oh, I haven't been able to do that. I've just been working so hard. And I asked her, I'm like, well, what has been the point of you getting a six-figure salary if you actually can't enjoy it? And so another thing that I realized with poor work-life balance is how it affects your health. Okay. So if you are under constant stress, right? Like the thought of I joke about it, but it's actually pretty serious. I joke about like hearing the Teams message or the Teams sound when somebody's calling you, like it gives me anxiety. And I think it just triggers me back to COVID where I felt like my Teams was constantly going off and I had to respond quickly. And so if you find that physically you're reacting to going to work or getting messages from work, that might be a sign it's time for you to leave. In addition, you're unable to eat healthy, right? Eat nutritious food because you're constantly on the go and you have to make sure that you get your work on time. You're not getting enough sleep because you're staying up at night in order to do your work constantly, right? Another thing is you're unable to get the exercise because you say to yourself, you know what, I'm tired, or you're actually undernourished, and so you don't even have the energy to go work out. And then lastly, as I stated, that if you're in a place of just poor mental health, like you're constantly anxious, you're constantly stressed, and you just feel like, you know what, I'm unable to do this, then it might be a sign that it's time for you to look for another job that allows you to just have proper work-life balance that you can actually maintain. And the last sign that it's time for you to find a new job is the lack of job security. And this one is really important because I think a lot of us understand or see the signs that our current company is not doing too well, or even our industry is not doing too well. And we kind of choose to ignore it because we just hope that it won't affect us. And so my thing is like, especially these past, let's say 2 to 3 years, as we've been watching the economy and we've been watching the layoffs. If you're finding in the industry there have been frequent layoffs, or even in your company, if you're finding that they've been doing multiple rounds of layoffs, then it's time for you to really start considering, okay, what is my backup plan? It took for me to get laid off once to really always be prepared to get laid off again. Not because I'm being pessimistic, not because my company's not doing well or any of those things, but mostly because like I know I don't control a layoff, right? Like I don't make the decision of whether or not I get laid off. But the thing that I can control is being prepared, right? And understanding that I have my resume intact, knowing what my value is, knowing how to articulate my value, what roles I would go after if I was ever laid off. So you always want to be prepared for that. The second thing when it comes to lack of job security is that you need to understand whether or not your company is financially stable or not. And this is something that I said I definitely want to get better at. So for any of us that currently work for a public company, public institution, you have access to a lot of their financial statements as well as the earnings, right? The quarterly earnings. And so you have to make it your due diligence, right? Make it your duty in order to be aware, in order to be knowledgeable of what your company is, how your company is doing financially. Because if your company is performing poorly, then that will probably affect how they're going to handle their expenses. And one of their largest expenses is going to be human capital, i.e., you. So you want to make sure that you're constantly challenging yourself to understand where your company is financially. And then lastly, when it comes to lack of job security, you need to know if you're in a volatile industry. And something that I found is that whether it is during COVID or even just post COVID, a lot of industries have been affected by the pandemic. And I see that a lot of industries are still trying to find that balance because there are industries that were doing really well in 2020, 2021. And now that that wave is riding off, they're performing poorly, and as a result of that, they're laying people off. And then there are those that didn't do well during COVID, and now they're doing well, and now there's increased demand, but they're still trying to catch up on the hiring in order to fulfill that demand. And so you need to understand where you are when it comes to just being in a volatile industry. And so we talked about signs, right? So the first one being lack of career growth and lack of development. The second being compensation, poor compensation. The third is toxic work environment. The fourth is poor work life balance. And then the fifth is overall just lack of job security. And so, if you find yourself agreeing with any of these signs, like, you know what, I'm at this crossroads, I think it's time for me to leave my job, then there are a few things that I want you to do in order to prepare to leave for your job, right? And I think that when you are employed, when you have a job, it's way easier and a little bit less stressful in order for you to find a new job. So while you have this time, I definitely encourage you to take advantage of it and just be prepared. And the first thing that you want to do if you're ready to leave your job is determine what the next looks like. And to take the pressure off of it, you don't necessarily need to have your title. Like, you don't need to have account executive, business development, financial associate, or any of those titles, right? Mostly because I find that the things that we say that we want to do and the titles that we think that we want to do don't necessarily match up. And so I encourage my clients to look at overall industry, company size, the type of work that you want to do, the level of satisfaction, and also the skill set that you want to use. And so during one of my workshops with one of my clients, and we were talking through, okay, what does the next look like? I had her talk about, or even discuss, like, okay, what has she done throughout her career? And then I also had her talk about the things that she didn't like. And we ultimately made a decision because one thing she said is like, if I didn't have to do this in my career, I just never want to touch it. And that's what's great about reimagining your career. Like, you get to decide what you actually want to do. And so if you find like you don't want to do valuations going forward, don't put valuations on your resume. Don't search for jobs that require for you to do valuations. If you find that you want to do more client retention or client business development, then focus on securing those types of roles. So the second thing that you want to do is audit your skills. So now that you've reimagined what the next looks like, now you need to actually determine, okay, am I actually qualified to do the next thing that I want to do? And so when you determine it, one thing I say is that you need to really understand what are your true gaps. And what I mean by true gaps is like, you don't have this specific skill in order to do this specific job. So if I decided that I wanted to be an electrical engineer and I have a real estate background, like, I actually have a gap. Like, I know that I specifically don't have the engineering classes, I don't have the certifications nor the licensing. So those are true gaps that will require me to go back to school, get a degree, get some additional certifications, right? But if you find that you might have a soft skill gap, right? Like something in relation to team building, influence, communication, executive presence, it may be a sign that you might not necessarily have a gap, but you need to dig deeper as far as like are actually articulating your value. And that's something that I help my clients with. Because I find that many of us are running to get degrees and certifications, not necessarily because we are looking to up level our skills, but more so we're looking for self validation. Like, we're waiting for that piece of paper, we're waiting for that certification and that put on that label on our resume to say that I'm ready, I'm worth six figures, I'm worth this job. when in actuality, it's just going to take up space in your resume if you don't even know how to actually articulate its value in relation to how it's going to improve the company. The third thing when it comes to creating a plan is that you want to actually revamp your resume into a six-figure resume. And your six-figure resume, and one thing I tell my clients is that it has to be based on results. Like the number one mistake that I see when it comes to resumes in general is that people just simply treat their resume as just a place to put, their job history, list out all the things that they've done. And that's a huge mistake because when you're looking for a specific job in a specific industry in a specific pay range, then you need to be able to talk about the achievements. You need to be able to talk about your results and articulate it in a way that employers look at it as valuable. The fourth thing, as you're creating your plan, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to leave, is that you want to start utilizing your network now. And so I tell my clients that, look, your network is not only there and it's not a genie. Like it's not something that you go to when you want something, right? It is something that you should be developing while you have a job, when you don't have a job, while you're starting a business, like all the time in between, you should be developing your network. And by developing your network is keeping in contact, investing in your relationship, and being able to be of service to others that might need your assistance. So that when it's time for you to ask for something, when it's time for you to request time, it's going to be very reciprocal. So make sure that you're having conversations now and not, God forbid, if you're laid off or if you're fired or you just have some instability that you need a new job and that you have someone that's willing and able to help you with your next step. The next thing is you want to start creating a schedule so that you can start applying consistently. And this is where a lot of people fall off. I find that many people are saying, I want to find a new job. I have my resume. But when you ask, okay, have you been applying? And they're like, well, no, I haven't had time or this, that, and the third. I'll be honest, finding a new job can be a job in and of itself. But if you have a schedule and if you have just basically outlined how you're going to consistently apply for jobs, then it makes it that much easier. So I tell my clients that one thing that you want to do is definitely search for jobs consistently or look at the job boards every day because new things get posted every day. But pick a day where you're going to apply for those jobs in bulk. Like if you find that applying every day is overwhelming, then pick every 3 days. You're going to list out all the jobs that you're going to apply for. And then on Wednesdays, you're going to apply for the jobs. Then on Saturday, you're going to apply for all the jobs that you found from Wednesday to Saturday and just keep that same momentum. And the other thing is that it's all about the quality of jobs that you're applying for and not necessarily the quantity. Like I don't want you applying to jobs just because like, okay, maybe I'll get the interview or maybe this job looks easy. Like I want you to actually applying for jobs that you desire, right? Jobs that align with your values, your missions, and what your next looks like. And then lastly, when it comes to planning out your next career move is seeking out assistance. And when it comes to seeking out assistance, you want to make sure that you find the right help, right? And so if you find that you need a career coach, understand that a career coach normally is there to guide you throughout the process. So they're there to help you be self-reflective. They're there to help you give you strategy. They're there to be your coach. And they're there to also provide the resources for you in order for you to be successful throughout your job search. Now, this is going to vary depending on the type of coach that you hire. It'll vary in maybe in their niche, if they're specific to, let's say, HR, specific to project management. For me, I'm specific to overall corporate jobs, but getting you into the six-figure range. So you want to make sure that you're finding the right coach that aligns with your goals. Next thing is when it comes to assistance is resume writers. And so I find that some people kind of confuse career coaches and resume writers. So your resume writer is there to specifically help you with revamping your resume. Okay. They also may be able to help you with revamping your LinkedIn profile as well as creating and editing your cover letter. And so, when it comes to working with a resume writer, you need to be very clear on the types of roles that you're applying for. And so, the reason why I say that is because the resume writer is going to write your resume based on your preferences and what you say that you're going to pursue next. So, you want to be clear on your goals. If you're not clear on your goals, then you might want to get with a career coach so that they can help you get clear, audit your skills, and help you find the right fit as far as the next role that you're going to apply for. The last person that you can use as far as assistance in your job search is an actual recruiter. And so recruiters are great because recruiters can help you, will help provide you with the leads for jobs. And then in addition, they're able to get your resume in front of the right people. And so recruiters are definitely kind of like the middle people. And so I think that recruiters are great when you're very clear on what the next looks like. In addition to you have your resume set, and also you're very confident when it comes to your interview prep and how you're going to present yourself with the hiring manager as well as the recruiter. And so hopefully you're in this place where you've identified, okay, if this is the right time for you to move, then now it's kind of like, okay, let me actually put a plan in place. And so I know that there are many people in my audience who are saying, you know what, I'm actually ready to land my first six-figure job. I'm ready to do something different, but I need a little bit of assistance. And so something that I created for you guys, is called the Ultimate Guide to Landing Your First Six-Figure Job. So if you are in this place of a career crossroads, I definitely encourage you all to click on the link that's in the comments, download this guide. It's completely free, and you're able to work through this guide and this workbook and answer the questions needed in order for you to put together a plan to land that six-figure job. So that is all that I had for you today. If you have any questions, definitely shoot me a DM or write it in the comment box. Or if you're ready to work with me one on one and you're ready to get into the Career Catalyst program, I encourage you to book a one on one call with me. The link for that, I will drop it in the comments. However, you can also find the link on my LinkedIn profile. So, with that, you guys, I had an excellent time with you all. Once again, let me know if this is your first time or if you're catching the replay, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.